Mehdy Touil, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Peter. Great to be here.
So you are known as the LNG guy on LinkedIn. That's how I found you. You're an expert in the LNG industry. Would love to hear about your journey and how you became the LNG guy.
Yes, thank you, Peter. So, me being the LNG guy came from a long journey on the platform. I started my LinkedIn account in 2014, so almost 10 years ago. Initially, it was just a way of discovering people with mutual interest. So, my primary interest has always been LNG, but on the technical side, so liquefaction technologies. And I wanted to expand my knowledge on the different available options for liquefaction. So initially, I started connecting only with my colleagues. I was working for Qatargas at that time, 2014, and my colleagues were not really into. At that time, it was the Facebook peak, I would say. I was not into Facebook. I never been, and there was not so much response from within my inner circle, from within Qatargas. So I started to reach out to connections outside my first ring of connections into other liquefaction projects. So slowly I started building up a network, an inner network of operation folks from the liquefaction industry. And unfortunately, I would say that there was not much interaction between us because all the LNG scene has been dominated for years by news about trading, marketing, FIDs, SPAs and stuff, pricing. So, but on the technical side, there was next to nothing in terms of creative or genuine content. So I decided to start talking about something that I knew very well, which was the liquefaction technology. And something amazing happened. Immediately, my following started to increase dramatically in a period of few months. And people started listening to what I had to say on the technical side of the LNG, because the liquefaction segment of the industry is core to the LNG business, but it is not really represented among the other more, I would say, exposed segments of the LNG value chain. So I started posting articles, sharing technical drawings. I have a hobby at that time, making 3D models. So I started creating 3D models related to LNG processing and liquefaction technologies, and they became hugely popular. This expanded my interests, so I started looking at other alternatives in terms of liquefaction, other licenses for processing natural gas and liquefying it, and I started interacting with other actors in the LNG industry. And the following started growing. So I would say that within a period of 2 years, I reached maybe 5,000 followers, which at that time it was something very very consequent. And I really felt that I had the power of not framing the discussion, but engaging key industry figures, which before I thought I would not have had the chance to talk to designers or engineering directors of operation SVPs. So for me, it was something amazing having that opportunity to reach out to those people. And then those figures started asking me for questions, very deep technical questions. And initially I thought I didn't have the background and the expertise to answer those questions. But indeed I had, but I didn't have the confidence to reply to those people. But after I would say, couple of years, I got my confidence and I started interacting at a very high level with the key industry figures, the LNG industry. And this is where, again, my following started to increase dramatically for a second time. It was like a plateau for a couple of years, then started increasing again. But being in the LNG industry, being an operator, I used to say, I was the guy making LNG in the control room and the massive LNG plants. I never had the opportunity to meet those figures, those people face to face. I was always in the control room. working 12-hour shifts for years, rotations. I work in Qatar, I work in Algeria, in the desert, in Yamal, in the Arctic Circle. So I never had the even a single opportunity to attend or to be part or to participate to an industry event. Even though I was following those events, those conferences, but I never had the opportunity to be part of those landmark events in the industry. So what happened after I moved to Canada as an immigrant? So I attended my very first conference, which is LNG 2023 in Vancouver, which is held every 3 years. So this is a very high level conference attended by the top CEOs in the LNG industry and the ministries and very, I would say, influential persons from the LNG. And I remember well on my first day going through security to collect my badge, I met the John Palamara, which is the general manager for LNG technology at Air Products, which is the main licensor for LNG technology. I met him in the escalator and he came to me and he shook my hand. He told me, "Okay, Mehdi, nice to see you finally. Let's meet after that." I was shocked being recognized by John. It was an honor to me, really. And as soon as I entered the venue, it was continuously meeting people coming up to me. And at that time, I didn't know what to say to those people. Meeting a CEO or a director of engineering or a designer, I didn't know what to say. Then I asked my colleague Richard. I told him, "Richard, I don't know how to talk. I have been in operations for so many years. I don't know how to interact with those people." And Richard told me something very I will never forget. He told me, "Just be yourself. You are the LNG guy. Just talk about LNG. And if you ask me anything about LNG, I can keep talking for hours. If you don't stop me, I will keep on talking." And the next day, I started developing the ability to expand the discussion and to talk about something that I really care about, which is the LNG. And it was an amazing experience. And a couple of months later, I got the opportunity to go to Singapore to attend Gastech, which is the largest and the biggest gas conference. And a big chunk of it is dedicated to LNG. And the Gastech was LNG 2023 times 5 maybe, or times 10. So again, recognized by my peers in the LNG industry by attending the closed events that were only accessible to very high level key figures from the industry. It was an amazing opportunity for me. And then I understood that being for so long talking, debating, and dissecting the LNG industry, I acquired the ability to frame the discussion and to really elevate the debate beyond the traditional marketing, funding, financing, pricing discussions. I brought I would say, the technical perspective to the discussion, which is core again. This is something really core to the LNG business.
No, that's truly incredible. And really, Mehdi, having somebody like you on the show is exactly why I started Energy Superheroes to begin with, is because I had a background in a different industry, more in the gas turbine segment. And I met so many brilliant operators at the user conferences. And I thought to myself, there's so much bridge that can be laid between the technical side and the business side in this energy industry. And it's so deep and broad, so just LNG is a whole industry, just gas turbines is a whole industry, just solar is a whole industry. And so energy is, I think it's the largest industry in the world. And it's an exciting industry. Back in 2014, that's when I was in the gas turbine segment. It was quiet. Nobody in the main media really paid any attention to it. But now it seems it's in the headlines, it's on the front pages, and it's very exciting. I feel like energy is becoming almost like the new tech, where in the early 2000s, the tech industry was so exciting and growing and all the media was about it. Now it's starting to become that way with energy. So I want to unpack several areas that you touched on. One, before we dive into the weeds of LNG, because I really want to get there, can we talk about just how you feel about the media of LinkedIn, about the opportunities for people to reach directly to the audience on a platform like LinkedIn or other social media? And I had the same experience as you as well, where we started in Facebook. Nobody really paid any attention to it. People were connecting on there, but it was nothing was happening. LinkedIn really was kind of sleepy. And then it seems in the last 5 years, LinkedIn has really taken off. And I love it because it's really serious people on there that are deep knowledge experts in their various areas. So maybe talk philosophically about how you feel about the media, about the growth in social media, and about, I'm sure many of the audience would love to be you, the LNG guy, but in their segment. How do they do that?
Yes, yes. So I never been on any platform, social media platform before of any kind. I was always reluctant to waste my time, my energy, and my efforts on sharing stuff that maybe was not interesting to other people, even my family members or my close connections, my friends. But really, I felt that having a professional platform had really it had the potential to be something else beyond the social media, as we came to know it for many years. LinkedIn, especially once it went under the leadership of Microsoft, it really changed. I felt that change because I've been through that phase, not only in terms of statistics, in terms of analytics, but I felt that the Microsoft took LinkedIn to the next level, to the what it used to be intended to be in the first place. I always give because many people asking me how to reach the place where you are now, how to expand my network, how to be successful on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, you have to be very careful. It's an amazing tool to connect with your fellow professionals, with your peers. It's amazing tool to share knowledge, to display your expertise, but you have to be very careful how to use it. So the algorithm of LinkedIn, it's much more complex than it used to be a couple of years ago. There was a recent change. So the key to be successful on LinkedIn is to push the algorithm to work for you, not the other way around. You should not work for the algorithm. You should push the algorithm to work for you. What do I mean? Algorithm is so complex and so powerful that it will frame your feed based on any interaction you take on LinkedIn. If you like your colleague is posting a photo of his dog and you like it, and you like a birthday of your one of your family members, or you like a religious or a political article, or you comment on it, don't expect your feed to be homogeneous and to be centered around your area of interest. So what I'm doing, so this is a daily activity you have to do to refine your feed on LinkedIn and to make it better. Try to focus on your area of interest. I'm the LNG guy. So everything related to LNG, I will reshare, I will comment. Anything that is not related to LNG, I will do my best not to touch it in any form. No likes, no comment, no reshare. Because if you do that, you will dilute your focus, and the algorithm will follow that. So if you keep focusing, let's say you want to be onto gas turbines, so just stay on gas turbines. If you keep your focus on gas turbines and you keep continuously interacting with gas turbines content that is widely available on LinkedIn, by the way, the algorithm will keep pushing gas turbine related content to you. It will keep on suggesting connection that are sharing the same interest for you, well, with you on gas turbines. And you will see after, I would say, after a couple of months, you will see that your feed will dramatically improve. It will be cleaner, leaner, much more focused, and you will see the quality of your connections, the proposed connections, will start to improve. And because it's following is not about numbers. I have now above 50,000 followers. But if you go through my list of connections, you will see that most of them are in the LNG industry. So I'm glad to expand my network as much as I can, but I am very careful I do a daily cleaning. So every single day I'm adding maybe between 150 to 200 connections daily. This is organically. I used to send requests before invitations, but now I'm not doing that anymore. So now I'm just on the receiving side. So I'm just accepting connections. But what I do my best to keep, to prioritize LNG folks, people from the LNG industry. What I mean by the LNG industry is not only LNG people, but people related. So it can be mechanical, can be trading, marketing folks, but always that has a connection of any kind to the LNG industry. So if you keep on doing that continuously and religiously, I would say on a daily basis, you would see an amazing improvement in your LinkedIn feed, because have been complaining that LinkedIn is becoming like Facebook. LinkedIn is not Facebook. LinkedIn will be what you will make it to be. That's it. So it's your task. It's up to you to improve your LinkedIn.
Yes, that is absolutely right. And I spend time on my phone every day going through. I'm an investment banker, so I just focus on deals. I'm always looking for deals in the energy sector, and we now call it the climate, energy, and infrastructure group because it's become so broad. So both energy as well as new technologies, but unbelievable. There's so many deals, so many deal makers now on LinkedIn. There never used to be. And I completely agree with you. You must optimize your feed and you have to avoid any clickbait. So there's, as you say, political posts or funny pictures of dogs or different things. You cannot touch those. You got to go right past them. Otherwise, you're going to get more of them. So it's exactly what you say. You make your own feed. And wow, that algorithm is powerful because now I get really high quality deal information served right up to me on there. It's better than almost any email newsletter that I'm a part of in terms of curated content. The algorithm does it automatically now. It's amazing.
Yes, that's true. And you have to be very careful again about not only your activity, but your connections activity. So something I would recommend to do, and I do it on a daily basis. I would say every single day I remove maybe close to 30 to 50 connections. I'm sorry, guys, but it's need to be done, because if your first connection started diverting their interest to something else, it will dilute your own feed. So, and sometimes people are posting about controversial topics. So it's a professional platform. You have to stay professional. So I stay away from the very controversial stuff, and I do not hesitate to remove connections. This is very important. So it's just something that has to be done, unfortunately.
I agree. And I am getting more and more, let's say, non-energy, non-deal making connections reaching out to me more. I don't want to call it spam, but maybe it's fitness content or other things that are, as you say, really more appropriate for LinkedIn that are now, or for Facebook that are now coming to
Yes,
LinkedIn. And you absolutely have to avoid that stuff. It doesn't help you. You want to keep it a professional platform for sure.
exactly. That is really important, because again, Facebook, the algorithm is very much different, much more different than the LinkedIn algorithm. So you have to spend time. I have been asked several times how much time I spend every day on LinkedIn. I'm spending 2 to 3 hours. So I wake up early in the morning. I scan the news because I have a close network of very trusted people from within the industry. So we share news every single day. I go through my feed. I go through the news. I'm not using any bot or something like that, because people were suspecting that I had a team behind me. No, I'm the only one doing that. So I scan my news feed. I go through my connections, any something under the radar, and I will post them very early in the morning. So there is also a nice trick, especially for LNG folks, because the LNG industry is so global that you have to avoid posting at local times. So if you are in the US, I strongly advise you against posting at US time. Why? If you post, let's say, in the afternoon or around lunchtime in the US, so Asia is sleeping, half of Europe, they are leaving their offices. So you are targeting only the US. However, if you post morning time in Europe, like I religiously follow London time. So I always post interesting stuff and very important stuff around 10 to 11 a.m. UK time. So Asia is still awake. Europe It's really busy, and the US, North America is waking up. So by doing that, you are ensuring that you will be covering your global connections, which is very important. Unless you are targeting your local audience. But if you want to be global, like the LNG industry is truly global, you have to be very careful about what time you are posting.
This is incredible advice. So I think that's a good segue into the LNG industry itself. But I know so many people ask me as well about LinkedIn. So I'm glad that we were able to kind of take that path a little bit and give people some free, really good ideas about how to grow their LinkedIn. But let's move into LNG. It is a global industry. Maybe touch on just high level. Where do you see the industry today? And then we can sort of go from there. What are some of the big trends you see and how is it different today than it was, say, 10 years ago?
Yes, yes. So I'm really fortunate because I am Algerian. Algeria is the birthplace of commercial LNG. So the first cargo was loaded from Algeria in 1964. So
Wow.
almost 60 years ago. So 60 years of liquefaction. So I studied in the same place. I graduated from the Algerian Petroleum Institute in LNG operations. So I was really, from the beginning, I was really into LNG operations. And I had also the chance to visit the oldest, the birthplace of LNG at that time. The plant was still operating, which is the Camel LNG facility in Arzu in Algeria. And also, after a few years, I had the opportunity to be working for the top LNG producer, Qatargas. Now the new name is Qatar Energy LNG. And I witnessed the growth of Qatargas and the conception and the construction of the largest LNG trains. So a single LNG train in Qatargas, they are called mega trains. They are able to produce 7.8 million tons of LNG per train per year, which is huge, coming back from the 0.3 million tons per year from the very first liquefaction facility in Algeria. So the industry is a global industry. We, the actors of the LNG industry, we are global. We are all, I would say a big chunk of the LNG community are expatriates. So I worked in Algeria for 4 years in the desert, in the Sahara Desert. I worked for Qatargas, the top LNG producer, for 11 years. I started from the very bottom as a field LNG operator. I work in the only liquefaction facility located beyond the Arctic Circle in Russia, in Western Siberia, for 5 years. So I was really exposed to that, to the sense of the globality that is the core of the LNG business. Everything, from the very beginning, from the very first LNG project, the concept of the LNG was to export natural gas from one country to another one. So it's always been like this. This is the foundation of most LNG projects and LNG contracts as well. So it is important really if you want to understand the LNG industry, you have to look at it at the macroeconomic level. You have to look at, because we have different regions, we have inter-region trades, we have two different basins on which the LNG trade is based. But if you want to understand, you have to look at it at the global level. So it's really important. Now we are at almost slightly above 400 million tons per annum in terms of production. 20 producing countries, I guess slightly above, I think 47 or 48 importing countries. We have close to 480 million tons per year of liquefaction capacity, which is huge. Last year, maybe more than $60 billion was spent on FIDs for a project. We have amazing growth of in terms of liquefaction capacity in the US. We had, I think, 3 FIDs this year and 2 more coming before the December, all in the US, all in North America, except for the one Canadian project, Cedar LNG. We are expecting 2 more of these next year. So we are really into the golden age of LNG. Despite that, I would say, I don't want to blame the media, but it's nice to hear about all the other funding and investment happening on the renewable side. But if you look at the LNG, the incremental growth And the level of funding until maybe 2030 is so big that really you can understand that the future of the LNG is going to be amazing, and especially in the US.
Very good. So I love that's you led me right into it because I am US based. And as you know, we do project finance, investment banking. We focus on a lot of different segments. And I won't mention who, but a very smart fund said, pay attention to LNG. And so, why is the US a big opportunity right now in LNG?
So the LNG business model in the US is much more different than the legacy project that we have witnessed, like in Algeria, Malaysia, Indonesia, Qatar. So those projects have always been integrated projects. So you have all the actors, all the segments from upstream, from the wellhead to from the reservoir until the shipping segment was all integrated into a single entity. And most of the time, it was under the umbrella of big NOCs like Sonatrach, like Petronas, like Qatargas. So big actors being pushed by governments with the large funding, no oversight. So it was much more different. In the US, so you have some private players, very smart, started with the Sharif Suki, with Cheniere, and the model, the tolling business model for the so in the US, you don't have that integrated model. So you have an aggregation of small producer of natural gas and the liquefaction owner facility, the liquefaction facility owner acts only as an liquefaction player. So they do the liquefaction. You pay a toll, which is around $2 to $3 per MBTU, which is the basic pricing unit for LNG, and that's it. They do just the liquefaction. But yet, the level investment required for these large scale capacities is huge. We are talking billions of dollars. And funding $1 billion project is difficult, but we are talking about several billions. It's becoming almost impossible unless you have the ability to mobilize equity player investors. So before, as I said, for legacy project, the project was mostly funded by governments, by large institutions, international banks. But in the US, you have a lot of equity funding. So the funding on the US side is very strong, still strong. Equity players, they're looking into jumping on the LNG wagon, which I could understand because if you look at the numbers in terms of not only in production, but in terms of offtake agreement and how those projects are able to secure dozens of millions of tons of production before even beginning construction, you understand that there is really a big appetite for US LNG projects. So they are well regulated. You have the FERC, you have the FEMSA. In terms of regulation, because it's always a risk if you're looking at investing in other countries. I will not, I don't want to mention them, but there is a high risk in investing in other countries. Whereas in the US, you have the certainty of the having a facility being regulated, and that you have the oversight of federal entities that are able to make sure that the project is being developed in the correct way, not only in terms of financing, but in terms of environmental consideration, which is very important in the US. So yes, there is big appetite for US LNG projects.
That is great to hear. Music to my ears, of course. Now, help us get a sense of the scale of the markets. I know in the US, we have a low price per MMBTU for gas, which is great. We're having increasingly a renewable natural gas market develop. I don't think it's big enough yet for LNG, but maybe we'll get there someday. So I look at the US and say we have plentiful, low cost gas, but ultimately you need a buyer of that gas, of the liquefied gas, the LNG. You need an off taker. Where is the off-taker today going to be coming from? And how many projects do you think the US market could support to meet the demand of those off-takers?
Yes. So traditionally, the main consumers of LNG were in Europe, in the European basin, and in Southeast Asia. So the demand in Europe has increased dramatically after the invasion of Ukraine. So we have seen an increase, I think, up to 66%. Most of it were coming from US, from the US. from North Africa, like Algeria, and from Russia. Russia has still a big supply of LNG to Europe, despite some parties trying to put sanction on the import of Russian LNG to Europe. But there is no, as of now, there is no replacement for those volumes. If you look at the drastic reduction in pipeline imports. But the real growth, because the growth in LNG imports in Europe is related to geopolitical factors, and Europe has been reluctant to increase its import of not only of natural gas but its imports of fossil fuels. So if you look at the recently signed SPAs, there was one SPA, a major SPA signed today between Qatargas and Shell for supplying the Netherlands 3.5 million tons per annum for 27 years. So there was some discussion at the very high level at the European Commission to limit the length, the duration of the LNG long-term contracts to 5 years. So we have seen Shell signing 27 years contract. We have seen Total doing the same with Qatargas. But we have to understand that Shell and Total and other big names, big majors, they are portfolio players. So the final destination might not be Europe. Ultimately, the target for the incremental growth in terms of consumption is in Southeast Asia. There are some markets, smaller markets, but the real growth will be coming from Asia. There is no doubt about that. So China, the model for LNG business in China is quite different from other importers. China, it's not really a baseload fuel for China. It's not used for power generation. And you have a multitude of small importers. So LNG trucking in China is a big chunk of the country imports in terms of LNG. But if you look at the traditional importers and the foundation customers of the large-scale projects, like Qatargas, you have Japan, Korea, Taiwan. Now we have Philippines, the Philippines that recently joined the LNG importers club. You have Vietnam, very promising in terms of LNG. And you have traditional exporters turning to importers, like Indonesia was one of the first exporters of LNG with the very large-scale project. But now they are looking at consuming their own LNG due to the increasing domestic demand. So yes, the all eyes are on the Asia. You have some growth in Latin America. 2 weeks ago, I attended the GNL Global Forum in Cartagena. I was amazed by the attendance. And there are some, I would say, structural need for importing LNG. If you look at the demand in a country the size of Brazil, has a huge hydropower output, but due to the changing climate conditions and the drought, it has been increasing its LNG imports. So now Brazil has 6 FSRUs, floating and storage and regasification units, floating terminals, and they are going to expand capacity for those. So there is demand in Latin America. And I would say the neglected continent is Africa. I would love to see Africa taking its share of the LNG market. You have a huge project, massive scale project like Mozambique LNG. You have Tanzania LNG. You have Rovuma LNG with Exxon in Mozambique. You have Total pushing forward with the Mozambique LNG project. We have ENI with the already producing Coral FLNG project. On the other side, you have the Greater Tortue project in Senegal and Mauritania, which is already promising. But I would love to see an Africa using its own LNG to develop less fortunate countries that are really in great need of cleaner sources of fossil fuels. Yes.
No, that certainly makes sense. And there's a lot of countries that have abundant gas supply that could be supplying gas to other countries. And that would definitely elevate the standard of living. I know maybe they have challenges around infrastructure. I think the US has benefited from fracking, which I know is a bad word, but we've been able to produce some very low cost natural gas here in the US. Are there any other gas producers that can potentially, I know Qatar is a big producer, but any other producers that can maybe come to challenge the US and other low cost producers that we're not seeing today?
So right now, I would say that it's only Russia. But Russia, as a result of the latest wave of sanctions, so the development of the Russian LNG industry is really compromised. So you had Yamal Energy, which have been fortunate to work on that project for 5 years. An amazing project, very successful. The efficiency, thanks to the very low temperature, was amazing, was phenomenal. So, but as a result of these sanctions, so Russia won't be able to procure LNG technology, LNG equipment, cryogenic equipment from the West anymore. So it doesn't mean that Russia won't be able to manufacture this kind of equipment on its own or procure them from other friendly countries like China. But in terms of efficiency and speed of mobilizing funding for this massive project, I would say that the future of the LNG industry in Russia is really compromised. So it leaves only with so there is no incremental capacity, production capacity in Australia anymore. The cost of gas in Australia is quite high compared to other part of the world. You have Qatar, of course. We cannot speak about the growth of the LNG industry without talking about Qatar and the six new mega trains that will start coming online by 2026. So the country will increase its production from 77 million tons per year currently to more than 120 million tons, which is quite significant. But the real growth will be coming from the US. You have Venture Global, you have Cheniere, you have Commonwealth LNG, we have other smaller projects that are on the cusp, the brisk of being approved. So the real growth is in the US.
Well, of course, as being US based, that's great to hear. And I echo your sentiment of there is a tremendous amount of equity investment that is looking for a home and looking for a home that has a stable offtake. And
Exactly.
of course, renewables are always going to get a lot of publicity. However, gas is, our view is that moving from coal to gas is really going to be the biggest driver of GHG reductions still over the next decade. And it already has been the biggest driver of GHG reductions in the US over the last maybe 15 or 20 years. And I think the US is leading in this area of moving from coal to gas. I think many other countries will want to do that. And that's good news for the planet because gas is much cleaner and less polluting than coal. So maybe speak a little to LNG's role in a positive way in helping the world reach its GHG reduction goals.
Yes. So I have been a strong advocate of transparency around LNG. You have to be clear as industry players, as industry actors, that LNG is a fossil fuel. Yes, it is a fossil fuel. We have many issues around the LNG value chain. We have many areas of improvement, how we can do better. But still, LNG is the cleaner fossil fuel available. Natural gas is widely available in so many countries. The infrastructure for LNG is there in terms of receiving facilities. Last year and the beginning of this year, Germany and other, I think, close to 10 countries in Europe were able to mobilize an incremental import capacity, very significant, in a very short term, without looking at mobilizing extra funding, because it was under emergency, it was for an urgent case, but still the infrastructure is there. Not only for LNG, but on the receiving side, I'm talking about pipeline, about regasification facilities and the distribution network. You have consumers, you have end users that have been using natural gas for decades. So the infrastructure is there. Yes, we need to improve in terms of, especially on the upstream, we have to improve in terms of flaring. We have to improve methane. What we are doing with methane slips are a very serious issues. But really, I think that by displacing coal, which is the ultimate goal for the natural gas industry, by displacing coal, we could improve so much and we could reduce so much green GHGs emissions in a very short term. I'm happy to see all the funding, all the activity happening on the renewable side. But if you look at the intermittency issues, there is nothing that can replace natural gas. And we have to be honest with ourselves. We have to improve how we are liquefying, how we are operating, how we are extracting those natural resources. We have to improve. There is room for improvement. I'm not too keen about carbon offsets. And I recently published an article about how we have to avoid calling the LNG cargoes the carbon neutral cargoes. I don't like this terminology, saying carbon neutral, because you are lying to the public and you are being held accountable and you will be accused of spreading lies because LNG is a fossil fuel. You cannot call a fossil fuel carbon neutral LNG. We can use low carbon terminology, carbon abated, whatever you want, but don't use the carbon neutral terminology.
Yeah, I could not agree more. The key is honesty. And
Yes.
unfortunately, both sides of the political aisle, I think, are incentivized sometimes to be dishonest. The reality is that our lives are powered today by fossil fuel. And so as we move to an energy transition, the word transition means reduction and getting better and better incrementally over time. And the lowest hanging fruit, and also what's been proven, is the move from coal to gas. And the US already has the accounting to show that. It's a story that hasn't really been told well enough, I think, in the public. But that model can certainly be copied in other places where they're using a significant amount of coal today. And we have the ability to bring them low cost LNG many times at parity. Maybe it's a little bit more expensive, but it's a very cost effective solution because one of the biggest challenges, of course, is energy insecurity as prices rise. So if we go too fast with this energy transition, I think we end up hurting people, and then you lose the political will to be able to actually affect transition over time.
Yes, yes. If you look if in terms of talking about energy security, I'm African. I am a big advocate of African LNG, and I was the creator of the hashtag African LNG, which is becoming quite popular right now. There are some efforts being led by the UK and the European Commission to starve Africa from funding for energy projects, including natural gas projects. I would like to invite those parties, those organizations to visit Africa, the deep Africa, and look how people are living, how they are cooking, what they are using to cook their own food. Look at the level or the not level, the non-existent infrastructures. We could help so much countries, not only in Africa, in other parts of the world as well, to develop themselves, to establish energy security, and to get them out of poverty using natural gas and using LNG. Yeah, even if you don't want to invest into developing natural gas distribution networks, you can invest in developing LNG trucking like China is doing perfectly. That's the good model I would like to see being established for the less fortunate countries, especially in Africa. So yes, it's nice to invest in all those new renewables and getting subsidized. But if you look at like you said, at the parity in terms of cost and in terms of efficiency, because there is nothing more efficient than hydrocarbons right now. Yes, some other countries, they deserve to develop their own resources. They truly deserve it and they need it. We cannot starve African countries from developing their own resources. It makes no sense.
Absolutely right. And one thing I like to share with people, which I didn't invent this statistic, but the reality is that way, way more people are dying of cold related deaths because of energy insecurity than of heat related deaths. I think the number is maybe 10x. So when you look at people, if you really care about humanity, energy security is the number one thing that we can do to help people that are suffering around the world. Of course, climate change is a long term issue. However, in the short run, energy security is really a crisis issue for many people, and it has to be addressed.
That's true. That's true. And again, we have to, the industry players, we have to improve our message. So right now we have all those, especially in the US, those investments in the hydrogen scene. So I've heard the billions of dollars in different places being invested. But if you look at the details, so I think four out of seven projects in the US are for blue hydrogen. So I'm an operation guy, a very technical person. So I'm not against hydrogen. I like the molecule, but burning an energy vector, because hydrogen is not source of energy. Hydrogen is a carrier of energy. Burning a valuable molecule like hydrogen to produce electricity makes no sense to me as a technical person, because you are spending electricity for electrolysis to produce hydrogen, to convert it to electricity again, and you're losing so much in terms of efficiency in doing that. So I feel sad looking at those billions being invested in this kind of ventures, but it's the hype right now talking about green hydrogen. And I know that the fossil fuel, I'm part of the fossil fuel industry. The fossil fuel is pushing toward blue hydrogen, means hydrogen produced from natural gas. So I don't think that this is the real venue where we have to spend those billions of dollars. Like you said, going from leaving coal and moving to gas would be much more efficient.
Absolutely. And I will give you maybe an opportunity. I've seen a couple blue hydrogen projects where they're taking stranded gas and they're doing the upstream process and producing new gas to convert to hydrogen. They're doing carbon capture. I always thought that's an opportunity for LNG as well, is there's a lot of stranded gas around the US and the CI score, carbon intensity score, if you're using new wells and doing the most modern techniques is very low. So now there's an opportunity to create a really good low carbon intensity gas, whether that's used for hydrogen or LNG or something else.
Mhm.
But there is a tremendous opportunity versus just pipeline gas, which of course, the bulk of it's always going to come from pipeline gas. That's the lowest cost way. But there is a tremendous amount of stranded gas in the US, believe it or not, that is an opportunity for
Yes,
as a feedstock for whatever.
yes, that's true. The petrochemical industry has been using hydrogen for decades,
That's
and this
right.
hydrogen is very dirty. So yes, if we can clean up the hydrogen supply chain, yes, I'm all for it. And it makes more sense to, if you need a localized use for this hydrogen as feedstock for other industry, yes, I'm all for it. But burning hydrogen, no, I cannot accept this idea. It's so valuable that it doesn't make sense to burn it, unless I don't see any use for it. There is always natural gas, which is better than that. And yes, those billions spent on those projects and making the headlines everywhere, it hurts my technical brain sometimes.
It's funny because we've learned this in the internet industry that ultimately the engineers are right. And
Yes,
in the early days, they're usually not listened to, but in the long run, you can't change the physics of the issue. Or in the case of internet, you can't change the code, right? And so you saw, I think, an interesting phenomenon in that industry where engineers who were always, as you say, in the control room became the founders of the biggest companies and then led the revolution. So I think in the energy industry is ripe for this sort of thing. We're seeing it already on the technology side with billions in venture capital going to energy technologies. And I
yes,
think we're going to also see it on the project side where more and more the physics, the engineers are going to be right in the long run. And I think the sooner we can listen, the better, because a molecule in the US is a molecule in China
yes,
is a molecule in Europe. It's the same science, the same physics. So we
yes.
definitely should be taking advantage of that knowledge.
Exactly. So I'm all for innovation, for finding new ways how to become more efficient to the LNG supply chain, to invent. For inventions, we need invention in terms of energy storage, how to improve how we are dealing with the energy systems. There is so much venues for improving how we deal with energy. Again, going back to hydrogen now, the hype is all around blending hydrogen with natural gas, injecting hydrogen in natural gas again. And this is the selling point for most hydrogen project, that uh, you are burning hydrogen, you get a clean molecule of water. Okay, but from a cost and from an efficiency standpoint, you are burning valuable green hydrogen produced by electrolysis using green electricity, and you are burning it into a gas turbine to produce what? To produce electricity. And this is what especially in Europe, funders for project, they are selling the business model. So we really need to, I would say there is an issue in terms of energy literacy at the political level, especially for hydrogen. I've seen that multiple times that people who have zero knowledge in terms of energy talking about hydrogen, green electricity, clean exhaust, and stuff like that. I really think that, like you mentioned, that let engineers do what engineers do. Take care of the funding, but we technical people, we provide the solutions. We don't do funding, we don't do structuring, we don't do M&As, but we provide the technical solution and the best ones. It's the responsibility of the policymakers to create the frameworks that would enable us to move forward, not to selling dreams. Because if I am an OEM supplier, if I'm a gas turbine maker, and you tell me that we need a turbine that is able to run on 100% hydrogen feed, I will be happy to create it for you and sell it to you. I have no issues on that. If you want me to create a license to process license to make green hydrogen, I have no issues. As long as you are paying me, I will do that for you and I will be happy. But what is the end game here? What is the ultimate goal? What are we looking to achieve? Everything is about efficiency. We have to improve our efficiencies. That's it.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. And you are absolutely right that the technology is advancing significantly with hydrogen. I've seen it in the last few years, and I definitely see a place for hydrogen. And my biggest, I think, opportunity for hydrogen is as an energy storage media. We've tried to improve batteries to be able to do long duration energy storage. I haven't really seen it yet as far as a battery that can cost effectively store energy for multiple days. But there is some debate that maybe it'll be an ammonia as the energy carrier. But so we'll have to see how that works. But I do see hydrogen as a good potential energy storage media.
Yes. So going back to ammonia, yes, ammonia looks promising, but if you look at the safety aspect of it, you don't want to be anywhere close to ammonia storage tanks. Okay, the people will say that we have been using ammonia for decades, yes, but have you been using ammonia in an engine? If you go inside the ship, if you have the opportunity to go to a ship and you go to the engine room, you will smell diesel everywhere. Okay, so imagine that you create a technology that you will be able to run on ammonia, which is already available. And I know some engine manufacturers, they are already developing ammonia solutions. What will happen if you cannot control the leak? And leaks will happen. This is an engine. I never seen an engine that is 100% hermetic. So leaks will happen. And very small amounts of ammonia would kill dozens of people. So I don't want to be anywhere close to an ammonia or to an engine running on ammonia.
I would agree with you on that one, no doubt. And you are right. Any engine room you go into, you're going to smell whatever the fuel is, you're going to smell it.
Yes.
And so it is difficult to create a zero leak technology.
Yes.
There is a company in ammonia called Amogy that has received a lot of attention and funding. I'd encourage the audience to take a look at them. But to your point, these technologies are not quite here yet. So we have to look at what is available today and what works. And I think a key word is what's scalable. What is
Yes.
scalable today versus what do we hope will be scalable in 10 or 15 years?
That's true. So you have LNG for decades. So next year, 60 years of liquefaction. We have the infrastructure. It's a mature fuel. We have not only in terms of physical infrastructure, you have the LNG trade well established. You have all the mechanism, the various region indexes. You have the trading hubs. You have the end consumers. You have all the contracts in place. You have everything in place because the LNG industry, compared to, I would say, to the oil industry, the LNG industry has been very well structured from the start. And it's a clean in the term that there are not so much, I would say, controversial moves happening in the LNG industry. It's a clean industry. It's a gentleman club. Yes.
I think that's right. And your point to the oil industry is well taken. I think the oil industry emerged through trial and error over many decades. And so as a result, much like the electric grid in the US, it was kind of set up on an as needed basis. Whereas the LNG industry, there was a lot of thought put in because there were a lot of lessons learned over decades in other industries.
Yes.
And so it has been set up in a smart way.
That's true. That's true. And we have learned so much from the early trials, establishing integrated projects in the LNG industry. Then the refined models that we are having now are so much more efficient in terms of developing the next wave of the LNG project. If you look at the US LNG business model, which is quite interesting, because for me before I was in the operation side of the industry. I was not exposed to to how LNG is priced. If you ask me dollar per MMBTU 10 years ago, I would have told you I don't know what's dollar per MMBTU. I don't know those figures. But thanks to my activities on LinkedIn and my connections, I got the exposure and started understanding how LNG is priced, the contracts, long-term contract, the spot cargoes are being sold. So if you have that exposure, and this is what I'm trying to bridge the gap between the different segment of the LNG value chain. If you look at all these actors, how they are interacting between each other, we can improve. We can still improve this decades old business model. And I'm so happy to see that people from the trading side, from the marketing, they are coming to me asking me technical questions, and I do ask them about financing, about pricing. And I think that despite LNG being considered as a commodity, it is not really a true commodity, because you still have speculative markets like the TF in Europe, like the JKM index in Asia, that are not responding to fundamentals in the LNG industry, like oil, like crude oil would do. Yes. So you can see that, and you look at the Henry Hub in the US and the final price, delivery price for LNG coming from the US, you will see the gap, you will see the opportunity for arbitrage on US LNG compared to other sources. So you understand that I w- maybe people, traders, they will say, no, you are wrong, but I would say LNG is not really a true commodity like we understand other commodities. So we can improve on that side as well.
That's an incredible statement. I think we're going to have you on with maybe one of these traders on another time because that's exciting. And I think people underestimate the opportunity and the role that trading plays in making markets more and more liquid and driving prices where they need to be and facilitating global trade. If a market doesn't exist, for example, we talked about hydrogen, there is no real commodity market at all for that today. There's no
Yeah.
traded market. At least for ammonia, there is somewhat of a market, but it's still a very illiquid market. The more liquid markets can be, the more it can facilitate global trade and the more important it is. And so, me as a finance guy, we often get criticized like, hey, what are you guys really doing? Are you just sort of sitting in the middle there? But absolutely, hats off to traders and markets for being able to facilitate global trade. I think it's very important. So, we
Yes.
may have to have that as another conversation because I think that's an hour in and of itself, just the pricing mechanism and the market for LNG.
Yes, yes, that's true. If you start talking about the trading LNG, how LNG is traded on the different markets and the different hubs, yes, it's another topic by itself.
Unbelievable. We'll definitely have you back on, Mehdi. And before I let you go, tell everybody how they can get in touch with you. I know that you're on LinkedIn. Could you maybe spell your last name for the folks so they can definitely find you, or do they just type in Mehdi, the LNG guy, and then you'll come up?
Yes, yes. Just type Mehdi, the LNG guy, and you will find me immediately. And even though I have more than 52,000 followers, I do my best to try to answer to every single message I'm receiving. So
How many
yes,
messages do you get per day?
on average, maybe it depends on the occasion. When I was at the gas tech conference, I was receiving more than 300 messages per day.
Unbelievable.
Yes, yes. And it took me weeks to reply to all of them. So if I'm not replying to you, just wait for a couple of days. Don't be upset. I will reply to you.
All right. So look him up. Mehdy is his first name. It's Mehdy. And look up the LNG guy. You'll find him on LinkedIn. It's really one of the best accounts in the whole, not just LNG, but in all of the energy industry for really giving technical knowledge and complete industry knowledge of a market. And LNG is a huge market. I think increasingly important in our world in terms of both decarbonization and relieving energy security. So LNG is critical, and Mehdi is the LNG guy. This has been Mehdi Touil on Energy Superheroes. Thank you for being on.
Thank you for having me, Peter.